Today we're out here in the forest taking a look at the all-new 2016 Kia Sorento. I'll tell you in advance, this is one of my favorite 2- and 3-row crossovers out there because this is sort of the Goldilocks right-sized crossover, for me at least. The front end of the Sorento is styled very similarly to the Kia K900. It has this bold interpretation of their tiger nose grille with this very 3D effect grille going on. We have HID headlamps available on our model. Now, the important thing to keep in mind is that unlike some of those luxury entries, these do not steer, and the high beams are always halogen. We do have these 4-module LED fog lamps that are very reminiscent of what you also see on that K900. The Sorento is just under 188 inches long, making this almost exactly the same size as the Ford Edge and the Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now, the Ford and the Jeep are large 2-row crossovers, so this is one step above something like a Ford Escape or a RAV4 in terms of overall size. This is, however, about 4 inches shorter than a Toyota Highlander and a whopping 16 inches shorter than a Chevy Traverse. The big difference, of course, between this and the larger 3-row crossovers is right back here in the cargo area because we just don't have that much room. It is difficult to fit a 24-inch roller bag on its side back here. You can put them upright a little bit. We do have a small amount of additional storage right here under the load floor. If you were to get the 5-passenger version of the Sorento, this area where the 3rd-row seats go is actually an underfloor storage compartment that is fairly large. Things start out with a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine that compares very well to the RAV4, the CR-V, the Escape, etc. It produces 185 horsepower. The most popular engine in the Sorento is actually a 3.3-liter V6, however, and it produces 290 horsepower, relatively similar to what we see in things like the Pilot or the optional engine in the Highlander. Because this also competes with the likes of the Santa Fe Sport and the Ford Edge, we also have a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing 240 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. One thing you'll notice in this cabin that we don't find in the compact crossovers is this very large panoramic moonroof that goes all the way back there behind the 2nd-row passengers' heads. Our model is the top-end limited trim, so we do get this soft Napa leather with this very interesting perforated design on it. The front seats are ventilated, but all seats do get this particular design. It's made to look sort of like the quilted leather we get in Bentley models. The front seats do have 4-way adjustable headrests and height adjustable seat belts right there, and the driver's seat is a 14-way adjustable seat with adjustable thigh support and a 4-way lumbar support as well. In the middle of the dashboard, we do find a center channel speaker because we do have the up-end sound system in our model. We also have an 8-inch color touchscreen LCD. Now, it's rumored that we will get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto via a software update, but Kia hasn't said for sure. Our model has the optional 2-zone climate control. There's actually a 3rd zone for the 3rd row, which is also kind of an interesting twist back there. You can't control it directly from the front, however. Our model has the heated and ventilated seats, optional heated steering wheel as well. You'll find the USB input and 2 power outlets right there below that storage cubby. And we have a very traditional console shifter down below that. Speaking of options, we also have the partial LCD instrument cluster in our model. You'll see that this speedometer section right here is actually an LCD. Moving out from that, we have a 3-spoke steering wheel design with this faux wood trim up top. This is sort of listed as piano black. It's actually plastic. It doesn't really have any wood grain to it. Sport grips right there, and then a number of buttons on the steering wheel for our radar-based cruise control system, some direct access buttons there for our integrated Bluetooth phone system and the media system. The 2nd-row seats are surprisingly comfortable. These are very thickly padded on the seat bottom cushion and the seat back cushion. The biggest difference you'll notice back here versus those larger crossovers is actually 2nd-row legroom, not necessarily 3rd-row legroom, because sitting right here behind myself, I only have about 1.5 inches of room. If you get the 3-row version of the Sorento, then the 2nd row does slide forward and backward, helping you apportion legroom between the 3rd row and the 2nd a little bit more equitably. The 3rd row is relatively easy to get in and out of. An interesting twist is that the 60 side and the 40 side of the 2nd row don't move in the same manner. The 40% side is the only side that has a release lever, so you can actually get out of your own accord. On this 60% side, someone in the 2nd row would actually have to fold the seat down in order for you to get out. It doesn't collapse forward like this 40% side does. Now, that said, I was surprised because sliding this 40% side all the way back and then reclining it to a comfortable position, I actually have about 1 inch of legroom left back here. Obviously, these seat bottom cushions are practically on the ground, but the seats themselves are actually more comfortable than I thought. They're very thickly padded on the bottom and on the back. Now, the big problem back here, of course, if I sit upright, is headroom. I do have to crane my head severely to one side in order to sit upright. Your option is to either slouch so you can actually fit back here, or find someone shorter. Out on the road, the Sorento really surprised me because this is an awful lot peppier than I thought that it would be. We are in the V6 model, and the 2-liter turbocharged model is a hair slower these days. Now, the 2-liter turbocharged Sorento is also a little bit slower than the 2-liter turbocharged Hyundai Santa Fe that you see out there because it's not exactly the same engine. Kia uses the latest version of that 2-liter turbo in the Sorento, which basically trades some horsepower for a broader torque curve that's a little bit more useful. The braking distances in this car are surprisingly short, and that really shocked me actually. 117 feet from 60 to 0 puts this in a very exclusive crossover category. You can thank the relatively wide 235 width tires, which are standard on the Sorento, and our model has the optional Michelin tires. The handling is also excellent compared to those large 3-row crossovers thanks to the size and the curb weight of the Sorento. Obviously, something like a Dodge Durango, an MDX, a CX-5, or an Edge Sport are going to handle better than this particular model, but the difference is actually closer than you might think. The other areas that the Sorento surprised me were in the ride. This ride is relatively well composed even though we are in the model with the largest wheel package. Now, we do get a little bit more road bumps coming into the cabin than you find in the base model with the taller rubber, but this is still very pleasant in terms of ride. Cabin noise is also surprisingly low in the Sorento because this model, being the top-end model, also includes things like laminated side windows, a laminated windshield. Those are things that you don't find in your average compact crossover. This actually is just about as quiet as the MDX or the BMW X5 in the cabin. The last thing that struck me as a little bit surprising is the steering feel. There's actually a hint of it in the Sorento. Still uses electric power steering like pretty much everything out there, but it doesn't have that same overboosted feeling that I found in the Edge, the Ford Escape, and the Ford Explorer. It really does mean that this is an awful lot more fun to drive out on these rough, winding mountain roads right here, where steering feel is important. Now, fuel economy is the only downside in the V6 version of the Sorento, just like it's a downside in any of those near luxury V6 entries out there. Been averaging right around 21 miles per gallon, which is what the EPA says you're going to get, but that doesn't really excite me as much as the fuel economy ratings you get in the Toyota Highlander Hybrid. Obviously, this is an awful lot more exciting to drive than a Highlander Hybrid, but in terms of operational costs, that Highlander is probably going to be a little bit lower. Because the Sorento has such a broad competitive set, we're going to do this in chunks. The L, LX, and LX V6 models can be seen as a size upgrade to something like a RAV4 or a Escape or a CR-V. It starts at $24,900 for that base L model with the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine and the 6-speed automatic. A fully loaded LX V6 model will end up right around $33,000. Value, size, and the quiet cabin are reasons to buy this over your average compact crossover out there. Now, some key things to know are that for $33,000 approximately in that LX V6 model, you don't get leather on the inside like you may find in some of the competition at around that $30,000 price point. You do have to step up to the next model up in order to get leather interior. That's where the EX, the EX V6, and the SX model come in. The EX starts at $31,100 for the 2-liter turbocharged engine, $31,900 for the V6. Fully loaded, your EX will end up right around $40,000 or so. The SX is a little bit more expensive. Leather is standard on these 3 models, as is the acoustic glass, the power passenger seat, fog lamps, 18-inch wheels, 8-inch UVO infotainment system, backup camera, 2-zone climate control, and dimming mirrors. The EX and EX V6 also allow you to add options that you don't find in your average compact crossover. That's because these 3 models were really designed to compete with the likes of the Ford Edge. Versus the Ford, the configuration over here on the Kia is relatively similar. Handling is actually pretty close as well, unless you're taking a look at the Edge with their 2.7-liter twin-turbo V6. I actually think the interior in the Sorento is a little bit nicer, and I actually like the fact that you can get the 3rd row in this and you can't in the Edge. I like the overall size of the Edge, I like the looks of the Edge better than the Explorer, but I wish it had a teeny tiny 3rd row in the back, and that's basically what's going on in the Sorento. Obviously, these models also compare with Toyota's Highlander, which starts at $29,765, and that may sound like a discount over that similar EX in the Sorento. However, that Highlander uses a 2.7-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. It produces less power, and it is slower than the base turbo version of this. I actually think the Sorento has a nicer interior than the Highlander, and the interesting thing is, even though this is about 4 inches shorter than the Highlander, the interior space is actually very, very similar. The Highlander's 3rd row is no more comfortable than the 3rd row we see in this. We do get a little bit more cargo room, and you can get the captain's chairs in the middle, which are a hair more comfy. However, I would take the Sorento over the Highlander easily any day. Adding all the options to your V6 Limited will get you up to $45,000. And that $45,000 model actually compares quite well to entry-level versions of the Lexus RX, even perhaps the Lincoln MKX, which I really like lately, definitely top-end luxury-oriented models of the Ford Edge and even the Acura MDX. This is actually about $10,000 less than a comparably equipped Acura MDX. I think the MDX handles a little bit better than this, but the difference is mainly in feel thanks to the super handling all-wheel drive system. Actual grip and actual neutral handling performance is not going to be that much different because they're both front-heavy vehicles. Although the MDX does have a slightly snazzier infotainment system, I think that the radar cruise control in this is actually better than the Acura MDX. And the front seat is considerably more comfortable in this, and it's more adjustable than the Acura as well. Well, some people have told me they find the Sorento's relative size to be a problem. I actually find it to be an asset, because I really don't need that third row all the time, but I really like the idea of the third row in a vehicle. So that way when you have 6 people with you, you don't need to take a second car. That's really what's going on in this model. It's not meant to be that third row that's used all the time. If you are an actual family of 6, you do need to carry 6 people around all the time. This may be less convenient than those larger crossovers. However, if you're shopping from anything from a RAV4 on up to even that Acura MDX, I suggest you put the Kia Sorento on your shopping list. I'll see you next week.